Welcome to Golf Magazine's Club Test 2013. We are at World Golf Village in St. Augustine, Florida, and today we are talking irons. To my immediate left, Dan Zagora, far left, Jeff Deltz, and my immediate right, Jim Ester. Let's start with you, Dan. We're going to jump in with the world of forgiveness within irons. What did you find? You were hitting some better player sticks this week. What did you find?
Well, you know, I think that the key is that forgiveness is part of the lexicon for the better player irons these days. But it's with a wrinkle. A lot of the brands and the different makers that we had on display this week had a common feature. There was more technology, 3, 4, 5, then there would be a transition around the 6 or the 7 iron, and by the time you were at the 8 and the 9 iron, you were hitting a pretty pure blade, and that had implications for the forgiveness because it was basically stepped the same way. I think that the manufacturers are working on building as much forgiveness as they can into those longer irons, which is good because you might have more mishits there. At the same time, I think that they want to avoid putting too much technology on those shorter scoring clubs, and as a result, you don't have as much forgiveness if you don't hit the sweet spot.
Okay, great. What did you find, Jeff, forgiveness-wise?
In terms of forgiveness in the game or the game improvement category, I think they've broken it into 2 separate categories. You've got the kind of lower end of game improvement for those who are kind of just stepping up maybe from max game, and then you've got the better player game improvement maybe for those guys who took a year off, had a family, did that sort of thing. So you've got a dichotomy in the game improvement. Mm-hmm. So in terms of the lower end, you've got, you know, wider soles helping you get the ball up in the air. On the other side, on the top end, it's just easier to hit the ball straight. You know, there's no need to work the ball from left to right if you can hit the ball dead straight every time. So I found that for me, those upper end clubs, closer to the better player clubs, suited my game better. I could just hit the ball straight.
Okay, great. Jim, what did you find forgiveness-wise?
Well, max game improvement has always been about forgiveness and getting us as much help as we can have. There are really 3 groups within that category. You have the irons that look like hybrids all the way through. You have the irons that look more iron-like all the way through. And then you have the blended set where you have iron look up to about the 6, and then you have hybrids after that. And the thing that's changed so dramatically is that all of these clubs now are not just forgiving, but they're also attractive. And the nice thing about them is that they've done such a great job of blending in the hybrid-like features to either mask those features for people who want to hide them, and for those of us who really don't mind seeing a hybrid at 6.54, they do a wonderful job of blending those in with the irons on the lower end.
That's great, thank you. I think you guys have sort of touched on it already, but if you were to describe the world of playability, how the clubs perform, not just from a forgiveness standpoint, heel toe or misses, but how they get through the turf. What do you find in terms of the world of playability? In your case, are you still able to maneuver shots?
Yeah, and Rob, I think that we're going to see some themes here that are coming out of the discussion, which is as the manufacturers are trying to move through the variety of different situations that players in the real world experience, which is they need more help with the longer irons, perhaps a little less help with the scoring clubs. I found that the ball was still very workable when I had a 7 iron, an 8 iron, a 9 iron in my hands. A lot of the sets had 2 wedges where you would have a different loft built right in before you had to worry about the sand wedge. But at the same time, because of that technology, I think that you're finding perhaps it's easier to hit a 5 iron, perhaps it's easier to get it up out of the rough. You're not going to be able to work it like you might have with your father's blade, and that's a function, I think, of the technology changing the game on the long irons.
Okay, great, thank you. Jeff, what did you find?
In terms of playability and game improvement section or segment, I think that, you know, again, back to the 2 distinct groups of clubs. You had the lower clubs or for the more game improvement clubs with more of an offset to help promote, you know, a draw as opposed to amateur slice. And then as you work your way up to the better player irons in the game improvement category, you had less of an offset, thinner soles. You could definitely work the ball. It's a little bit more difficult with the offset to try to play an easy draw or an easy fade. It kind of snaps in either direction. So again, for us, it's the thin soles in the better player game improvement irons, thicker soles in the more max game improvement, and those are specific to the irons that people are used to playing, right? Thinner soles,
Yeah.
you know, you can really get down to the ball. The thicker soles, maybe you sweep a little bit more. You don't hit down quite as hard onto the ball. And it's just those two different types of players.
What did you find from a feel standpoint? I know you had some steel shafts, some graphite shafts, some forged heads, some cast heads. What did you experience from a feel standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, it was interesting. I never would have thought graphite shafts would even fit my game. I've got a pretty fast swing speed, and I loved them. There were two sets in particular that had graphite shafts. They were very playable. I expected a lot of torque in the shaft. I dig a lot on my iron shots. I expected a lot of torque, and those graphite shafts held in there, and they're not lightweight like a lot of people think.
They're substantial.
They had substantial weight to them, low torque. I mean, they tore through the turf, and they're very smooth. So in combination with a forged head, I mean, you can't ask for anything better. It felt great.
Great. Okay. I didn't forget about you, Doc. What did you find in terms of playability and feel on the Max game?
The Max Game Improvement clubs have improved so much in the last year, just in the last year, in terms of their playability. You can really dial the trajectory up or down. Now, draws and fades, let's face it, in that category it's tough to do because it's built to forgive.
And you're not very good either. That's the part of the problem.
And there's always challenges and opportunities.
Yes, that's true.
My theory is if they can make me look good, they can make anybody look good, and that's great. And the other nice thing about the new clubs is that they do such a great job of having consistent distances. You know, part of forgiveness is it gets you to the target, but it also lets you know which club you should dial in which situation. And the last thing that is so very different and so wonderful is now you can actually hit chips and pitches and little shots around the green with these clubs that you could never have done a year or two ago.
Much more versatile, huh?
Infinitely more versatile.
Great. Well, that's terrific. Thank you, guys. Jeff and Dan and Doc Jim. So in terms of irons, there's a lot of good stuff out there for 2013. Maybe the most important tip on top of all the good stuff that these guys shared with you is get yourself custom fit.